We got reached out to by the Mad Decent team. They were like, hey, like, we'd love to work with you. And, I had this song called Bappy. I think anybody gravitates towards Dylan because of his energy and his, like, he's just a fun person to be around. My high school yearbook, it's, I won most likely to win an Oscar, yeah. I've known the GTA guys for a long time, and those guys are some of the most talented producers, I think, in the entire scene. Their catalog is just insane. Coochie Mane. So that song was crazy because he was in jail at the time. Jamie Foxx is asking to come back to your show. I think you're going to say yes. You know what I mean?
Hi, this is Lauren Engel, Sidewalk Talk. Today I'm here with Party Favor.
Hey, what's happening?
So much energy, I love it.
Yes.
So you're originally born in Manhattan?
Yes, originally born in Manhattan. But it's hard because I want to say that I'm a New Yorker, but I can't really say that because I moved when I was 3. So, yeah. But I mean, I can, I'm happy that I was born there. It's such a cool city, but
Are your parents originally from New York, or?
No. They were living out there. My parents are both artists, so they were out there working. My mom's a graphic designer, as well as an amazing artist, and then my dad was out there doing a lot of illustration. He used to paint all the covers for like Newsweek and Time and Sports Illustrated and stuff.
That's huge.
Back before Photoshop, So.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's insane. And then what made them move to Utah?
I think probably just to like they wanted to like. We had some family out there, but they wanted to raise a kid, I guess, in outside of Manhattan, I guess. So, yeah, I don't know. I wasn't part of that decision. But yeah, I think that's why. I don't think I've ever gotten a full reason why, but that's what I assume.
What kind of music were they playing in the house when you were growing up?
A little bit of everything, to be honest. That's kind of, I think, where my love of like all types of music came from. I mean, I was listening to everything from classic rock to reggae to...
Actually, who showed you Metallica?
Who showed me Metallica?
Yeah.
My parents did.
Oh, wow.
But,
they're so hip.
But actually, the reason why I really fell in love with Metallica was my dad's friend, Matt McKieran, was a very, very well-known music video director at the time, and especially in the 80s, he was doing all the music videos for like Madonna and Michael Jackson, some of the biggest acts in the world. And he was doing a music video for a song called King Nothing by Metallica off their Load album, and they were filming it out in the forest out in Utah. And so my dad took me out there and surprised me with a visit to set to see.
Oh my gosh.
The show. And what was really cool is in the middle of them filming, everyone broke for lunch. So they're sitting there. I'm sitting there like, I think this was must have been like 99, I think, or 98 or something like that. So maybe even younger. So I was, maybe 10 years old. And I'm sitting down there, and all the members of Metallica come and they sit down at the same bench that we're at. And right next to me, and like Lars, the lead singer, the drummer, and James Hetfield, the singer, were sitting right next to me, and they were like my heroes, and they were so nice to me and so cool to me that it like has always left such a strong impact on me from like that, something like I'll always remember. So
that's so cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. Yeah. So I always have like a soft spot for those guys. I love their music as well. They're amazing. They're timeless, but it's like I think when you get to meet an artist and you get to, especially one that means a lot to you when you're a kid, I think that, and especially like the fact that they were nice to me and they were, they treated me like an equal even though I was like a little kid. I thought that was always so cool to me. So yeah. And
you tried drums or piano, right? But you didn't really get into it.
Yeah. You've done your research, yeah. So I tried to play the piano, and for me, like I've never, like no musical instrument really like connected with me. I feel like some people can kind of sit down and they sit at a piano, or they they put their hands on a guitar and it just feels so natural. And for me, I always knew I was musical and I could hear melodies in my head, and I every waking moment I'm playing music, and when I was a little kid I was the same. So for me it was like I couldn't find that instrument that was like this is where it's going to come out, until I found a computer and realized that it was like, I could kind of draw in and find what I was, what that thing was. So Yeah.
How would you describe your personality back then growing up?
I don't know. I mean, I guess I would say that I've always been pretty outgoing. When I was a kid, before music took off, I never thought that I could be a musician because I couldn't, like I said, I couldn't really figure out what instrument it was that I wanted to play. And I think for me, I wanted to be an actor when I was young. So I was doing theater and musical theater
Oh, wow.
when I was a kid. Yeah. So.
Did people in high school knew you as like the theater kid?
Yeah. I mean, my high school yearbook, it's I won most likely to win an Oscar, yeah, which is pretty funny. So, and I'm
what
in the
kind of
complete
roles
opposite
were
thing.
you?
Do
you remember?
I did just a little bit of everything, but I mean, I was everything from when I was a kid. I was Oliver Twist.
Did you like school though? Like, did you do well?
I liked school. I didn't like the testing part of it. I didn't like I feel like my learning ability I'm so hands-on. So for me, like that's how I've learned my music too. Is just by sitting and learning and teaching myself. Like if someone's like, hey, do this, and this. For me, it's always been that never really connects with me. And I think that for me, I've always learned anything by just doing and kind of almost throwing my feet into the fire, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What were you doing in your free time then?
Just hanging out with my friends, either snowboarding or doing some sort of action sports.
Were you competitive?
I was very competitive.
Oh,
yeah.
what sport?
Well, you mean competitive with other people or like actually competing?
Competing.
I didn't compete in snowboarding, no. But I competed in swimming. I was a swimmer in high school.
Same.
Oh, were you really?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. So I was a little water rat since I was young. I used to make like little films with my friends. Like that was like my favorite thing. I saved up to get a video camera back before the kids today have no idea. Like literally when I was a kid, you had to pay like $900, $800 to get like the most basic video camera model, and it was like standard definition. There was no HD possible when I was a kid, and like the only HD cameras were literally film cameras that were used in real movies, and so I saved up for a camera with all my like my earnings and my lawnmower money, and I used to make little films, stupid films. We have them somewhere. They're all in like little mini DV tapes.
Yeah.
Me and my buddies every once in a while will watch them, and it's pretty funny.
But did they have a storyline or just kind of?
Yeah, some of them would. I mean, I don't even remember. It's overall pretty stupid, but yeah. I mean, one was, I don't know. One was like somebody came in as an alien and it was attacking, and then we used to do a lot of videos where we would like edit them together with like little skits in between. Kind of like the old CKY videos. I don't know if you know those at all. Do you remember those? It was like before kind of like what kicked off Jackass back in the day. I'm sure you've heard of Jackass, right? It was these videos called CKY, and it was like Bam Margera and his crew. And all the crew that everybody, knows from a lot of those movies were like making these little skit and skate videos. And so that was like a big inspiration for us because we used to like think those guys were the coolest things ever. Yeah. So. And
that's what made you want to go to Chapman, right? Was it so for the film program or?
Oh yeah, absolutely, a film program. And also the majority of my family lives in Southern California and in Orange County. And so for me, it was like I got a chance to not only go do what I wanted to do, get a college education, and then on top of that, get to see my family. So.
And I guess your parents were supportive because they're also artistic people, so you could have studied whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've always been supportive. They wanted me to do what I wanted to do, but it was kind of like it wasn't just like, hey, do whatever you want to do and, you're all good. It was kind of like, if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. And so, like, Chapman's a super expensive school, so I had to take out a lot of student loans.
Oh.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you learned a lot from it?
I did. I think just like anything, though, it's like the connections you make are what's most important,
And what was the turning point that you didn't want to do acting anymore?
I don't think it's actually ever been a turning point. I've never stopped enjoying acting. I just kind of stopped it at a certain point when I think that everyone has that kind of moment when they're doing something artistic where they kind of realize, okay, do I continue this or do I kind of shelve it for a while, or do I just say, it's not working out for me,
Yeah.
And I think for me, I always knew that I could have committed to it, but I think that I wanted to kind of have a broader education when I was in school so that I had more options. And then through that and in school is when I really started to get into music. So it kind of like was this weird thing where if I hadn't gone down the path I did, I wouldn't end up where I'm at now. So I think it all happened for a reason. But if someone was to be like, hey, like here's a role on some TV show for fun, I would take it in an instant.
Oh,
you know what
I
mean?
want to see it.
Yeah. So.
And how did you meet your friend? Because originally you were a duo, right?
Yeah, so I was a duo when we started in college. We were a duo, and we were DJing and kind of throwing our own parties at Chapman.
Like going by Party Fever already?
No.
Oh.
We were Soundscape at the time. And we were trying to make, like, we didn't know what we were trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
But we were kind of making, like, electro house, progressive house, kind of type stuff, but it was absolutely terrible. It was, like, the worst thing ever. Yeah, it was fun. I mean, I look back at that time pretty fondly because I think that, you know, it was so new and so different for us. So it was, like, kind of a chance to try something new.
And were you already making original music when you were with your friend?
So when we first started, we just started like DJing, and at the time there was no one on, there wasn't really, there was like one DJ on campus that was like, he was actually worked as a DJ on the side, and he was really good.
Oh, wow.
And he was kind of like, you know, everyone's like, oh, DJ, well, we already have, you know, this guy, he's already, you know, like, and so for us, for me, I've always been someone who's like, I was always the kid that was like turning on new music at a party and people would be like, what's this? I've never heard this before. Mm-hmm. And we were playing electronic music and kind of trying to throw these parties and started to kind of annoy the hell out of people with like dance music. Because for me, I started falling in love with it, but it was not big at all. You know, like the only dance music relevant stuff at the time was kind of like Black Eyed Peas, and I think David Guetta had a couple, you know, more poppy hits at the time. But that was about it.
How many years ago was this?
This would have been in 2008, 2008,
Okay.
2009.
Yeah.
So, you know, it was bubbling up in LA. I mean, obviously there's a scene, but I don't think that, you know, in our conscience now we think about dance music, EDM, as this kind of, you know, mainstream music in a way, or like a, you know, at least another branch of mainstream music. So I think that it's just weird because at the time it was like people would tell us to turn it off all the time. We'd be playing like heavy electro stuff from like France, and people would be like, "What the hell is this? I don't know what this is." So
actually, how did you go from the Metallica to more of the EDM? Like, how did you first found?
I think that kind of goes back to the fact that there wasn't really for me like a. It wasn't just like I like this music, I like that music. I think for me it was kind of like, I've always liked everything, and I think for me, anything that gets me excited and gets me in like a positive, like fun vibe, I think is what I always gravitate towards. So sometimes, you know, that it might be like a metal music, and where you're gonna get like, you know, a little more hyped up and crazy.
Yeah.
And I think that for me, dance music was such a fresh, like, take on just energy in general. I listened to it and I just gravitated. I was like, this is so fun. It's repetitive, but it's just like, it makes you want to move. It makes you want to get up and do something. So that's why I gravitated towards it.
And also was with Luminox, right?
He was one of the first people that, like, back when what you consider trap now, like, you know, because real trap music is from Atlanta, right? So hip hop, and I think that, you know, it's kind of become a term that's been coined by dance music as well as kind of like electronic music with more hip-hop influence and beats. But at the time, like, when I started to really find my sound was when, you know, Tonight was popular.
Oh, yeah.
Luminox, RL Grime was coming up, Bauer, Floss. Those guys were all kind of like the forefront of the music for me, at least.
After you graduated, you were doing music and you were a graphic designer and videographer, right?
Yeah, I was basically doing any jobs to make ends meet, because I moved up to LA and I was working over at NBC in Burbank.
Yeah. What was your role with them?
Editing sizzle reels.
Oh,
so,
nice.
Yeah, basically putting together like little pitches for possible reality TV shows. I was happy to have a good job and it was paying well, but for me it was like I wasn't feeling fulfilled like I had hoped, and I think that I was starting to realize that, you know, my window for trying to make this music thing, you know, happen was closing, and I think that I started putting all this emphasis into trying to, you know, stay home, work on music, and do all this stuff. And then the next thing I knew, I was like, okay, well, I got to either commit to a job and in a career, you know, in this world, or I got to commit to the world in the music world. And I just kind of dropped my job and went after this. So, yeah.
And then, was it the Swedish House remix that you did that garnered you some attention early on?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think
because it was on the radio already.
I think it was
Yeah.
getting some like, like late night radio play. I think people, when that was first coming out, one of the, it's looking back on that stuff, it's so simple and it's so basic, but you're basically just resampling something and then adding some drums and an 808 behind it. But I think that it was something that people were looking for and finding cool, and at the time it was really unique. And for me, it was a great way to kind of keep getting better and learn production, is because sampling came so naturally to me. I couldn't I didn't know how to create all the sounds that I wanted to create, so I would resample and find ways to manipulate, sounds from the real world or other songs into what I wanted to create. So a lot of my early songs were very, very, very sample based, where I would like almost kind of resample the original song but try to turn it into a new thing, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And then how did you meet Mad Decent?
I think at the time, it's so funny because like it's really not that long ago, but in dance music, 5-6 years ago is like an
era.
age.
Yeah.
But I was just playing. A lot of my songs were starting to get played by like bigger DJs, and especially at the time, that actually like was a big deal.
Yeah.
So, like now it's not really as big of a deal, and I think that getting a poppin' song on SoundCloud doesn't really matter as much anymore, because it's so saturated.
Yeah.
But at the time, if you had a really, really poppin' song on SoundCloud and everyone was playing it, I mean, that was like everybody wanted a piece of your action. So I had a few songs that were starting to get a lot of traction, and a lot of the big dogs were playing them. Skrillex, Diplo, some of the big trap guys, some of the big bass producers at the time. They were playing these songs, and it was like all of a sudden opening all these doors for me. We got reached out to by the Mad Decent team. They were like, hey, we'd love to work with you. And, I had this song called Bappy, and I'd been sending it out, and I'd been playing it out, and everybody was playing it, but it didn't have a home yet. And I knew that I really wanted to put it out on Mad Decent, because I felt like it was, all the artists that they supported and the music that they played and put out was very forward thinking. And for me, I was like, that is where I want to be. I want to be where people are, where I feel like I'm the less version of my peers. Like I feel like I'm not as good as everyone else here, because I want to get to their level. That was where it found a home, luckily, and that kind of kickstarted basically everything for me in terms of like actually going from just kind of having an agent, playing some shows, to really starting to move forward and tour. Yeah.
How did you meet Dillon Francis?
How did I meet Dillon Francis? To be honest, I don't remember the exact time I met Dillon Francis, but I just remember, I think, probably playing a festival or a Mad Decent block party or like something back in the day. But, I think anybody gravitates towards Dillon because of his energy and his, he's just a fun person to be around. He's someone who, when you walk, there's people when they walk into a room and they just command the energy.
Yeah.
I think he's one of those people. And so I think that, I was like, hey, I would love to, work with this guy. And also I'd been spinning his records back in college before he'd even signed to Mad Decent, I think,
That's
so
cool.
Yeah.
How about with Bauer?
Well, what's funny is Bauer, obviously was a big fan of Bauer when I was coming up, and we didn't even work on a song until 2018. Holy shit, was when we really got to actually hang out, because we'd never really met or hung out before that. So we just kind of hit it off and realized that, we had a lot of same interests, and I was like, let's work on a song together. And he's like, let's do it. And that was it.
How about with GTA?
I've known the GTA guys for a long time, and those guys are some of the most talented producers, I think, in the entire scene. Their catalog is just insane, and their ability to kind of chameleon between so many genres and styles. I don't remember exactly when I met them, but I had wanted to work with them from the minute I heard their music. So It was really cool for me to work with them on the album. So, yeah.
And then how did you work with a lot of rappers earlier on?
I didn't really. A lot of stuff I would do is like whether it's sampling or, just hitting up a team. And I don't think I worked with anybody really that big until my first EP, which was like, I think I worked with Rich the Kid.
Was that
Sean
different,
Kingston.
like going from remixing to like doing more stuff with rappers?
Yeah, it is. But I think like for me, I just love being thrown like kind of into the fire. And so when I worked with Rich, it was kind of like, I was like, oh, here's some beats and like here's some things, and he's like, he just went and did his thing, and it was kind of like, all right, well that's it. I got the verses then and something like there, and now I've got to turn it into something, and I think that's where then my ability kicks in, where I say, oh, okay, now I know what I can do with this, and then so I change the beat around, or I cut up his vocals and to make it a hook or whatever it might be, and so from there, then I got more comfortable and learned like how I work best with these guys when we come in together, you know, because it's a different world, you know, what I do every day versus what they do every day.
How about with Gucci Mane?
Gucci Mane. So that song was crazy because he was in jail at the time.
Yeah.
So that song was actually like done mainly through like using old verses that never came about, that he never released.
Oh my gosh.
We combined a couple songs together and then got it all cleared and sampled through his team and through him. And then he had to sign off on it in jail. And
crazy.
yeah, that was it though. I mean, it was, you know, I wish I could have been like in the studio with him like every day working, but that song
I feel like
was,
that's more of a
you know,
story now.
yeah, power of the internet, you know.
Yeah.
Like, but look at him now, like the ultimate glow up, you know.
Yeah.
Like, the guy's like completely transformed his life since he came out of jail.
And also, you've always been close to Bro Safari, right?
Yes, and yeah, Nick has been. He's just a great person in general. He's such an amazing guy. And he was just reached out. I remember originally, and I was able to do a remix for him for his song "Scumbag" off of his. I'm blanking on the name of the song. Anyways, wow, I can't even remember the name of my own remix. But I remixed this song for Bro Safari and Drama. There we go. And he was doing a remix competition, and it was like the first remix competition that I ever had entered, and I was like, you know, I'd kind of briefly met him, but that was about it. And I did the remix, and I sent it into them. And I remember they loved it, but they're like, man, we need to work on this mix down a little bit. So I sent over the parts to them, and I think they ended up getting it mixed for me and put out. But that was such a cool thing for me because, you know, I kind of had the Drama remix, and then I put out my Booyah remix at the same time, or like in the same month. And it was like those two back to back were kind of like this really big moment for me. So, and I love Nick. I've talked to them, seen him in festivals, you know, hung out with him in different situations, and he's a great guy.
Yeah,
and,
he really is.
He's definitely a pioneer in so much. So.
And how did you connect with Jamie Foxx and the Coachella performance?
You know, I don't remember exactly like how I met Jamie the first time, but he's just such a cool dude. I mean, the guy is like got what a career he's had, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it was something where we like reached out and we're just like, hey, you know, like when you play Coachella, you always want to do something crazy. And I was like, man, like, you know, I think everyone kind of tries to bring out the same people or tries to do the same thing. And I was like, man, I want to bring out someone that was like, it's like going to do something that, you know, is totally unexpected. And so we decided to bring him out, and he was all about it. And literally the day that we got him out there, it turns out that like Kygo reached out to him and was like, had him come out because he's already going to be out there. And we're like, no, like it's going to, you know, it's going to be like ruin the surprise. And so he ended up doing his thing with Kygo and then coming and do our thing. But I think that I could just tell he was having a really good time, and it was really, really cool. And then he had so much fun. He was like, I want to come back next weekend. And we hadn't even planned to have him come back the next weekend. So he was like, if you guys will have me, I'll come back. I'm like, if Jamie Foxx is asking to come back to your show, I think you're going to say yes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so he came back the next weekend, and and yeah, it was crazy. He brought back his girlfriend Katie Holmes, and I think he Azalea or something. So I walked in. I come to the festival, right, and I'm chilling. I walk in the backside of the festival behind where the artist tents are and whatnot. We're walking in the dressing room, and like the security guard, Jamie's security guard, stops me, and I'm like, he's like, oh, real quick, he's like, so you've met Katie Holmes, right? And I'm like, no, I have not met Katie Holmes before. He's like, okay, I'll introduce you. It's like I'll open the door, and it's literally in my dressing room. It's Katie Holmes, Iggy Azalea, Tyga, and Jamie Foxx, and me. And I'm like, okay, this is just random, but it was awesome. It was cool. Everybody was so cool and nice, and yeah, it was great.
When was it that Kendall Jenner was also there, or was it
yeah. We ended up giving them some passes, and she just got to meet and say what up to her. She's super nice, super sweet girl. Yeah, so it's cool. Yeah, super random. It was like the most like that Coachella for me was such a random experience because I don't really go out a ton, and I don't really go to a lot of the cool bougie things as much as I should probably.
Yes, you should.
And it was such a like overwhelming experience because I was around all these people that are so much bigger than I am, and I'm like this little small fish. And it was just overwhelming overall. But Coachella's awesome. Yeah, that was incredible.
What would you say are the main inspirations for Layers?
I think Layers was just I wanted to kind of express where I'm at musically and where I'm going and where I came from. So there's throwbacks to where Party Favor started. There's stuff of where I'm trying to go, and then there's also stuff of just kind of where I was at the time when I was making the album. So it's just kind of all the layers of me and all my sides, and that was kind of the idea of it. I think I ultimately made this album more for myself than I even did for like anybody else, and I think it was really fun and refreshing and just like awesome to do. It's kind of cathartic in a way to do this album. So
actually, with that, like, what are upcoming, like, the sounds that you want to have from the album moving forwards?
There's a lot of cinematic elements in the album, and I really want to try to incorporate that more, because as I've learned more about music and become like we talked about in the beginning of this interview, like trying to learn what my instrument was or learn about music, and I feel like I've learned so much more, and I'm trying to learn every day about musical theory and composition and things like that. And so for me, it's really cool to incorporate kind of more cinematic elements and real instruments and orchestral elements into my music, outside of just the booty shaking stuff, So it's kind of like because my music, my brain, when I turn on, like on the way over here, I was listening to I think I listened to Limp Bizkit from like some old school Limp Bizkit, came on shuffle. I listened to Stick Figure, who these like reggae dub group, absolutely incredible. If you don't know them, take a listen to them. And that's something else. I don't know, something probably hip hop or something.
Yeah.
So for me, like my music taste, like I can't just listen to one thing or one style, and that's also like how I want to be when I make music. But I still want it to sound like me. So it's like, how can I bring these worlds, these sounds, these things into Party Favor world? If that makes sense. So.
Actually, with that, do you think you would do a whole movie soundtrack?
I would love to. Yeah. Absolutely. That would be so much fun for me. Yeah, yeah. I want to do that, or I want to score like a fashion runway show or something like that.
Yeah.
Like something very unique and crazy. But I have this other project that I'm working on with someone else that I think actually might fit that world very well. But it's a secret. I can't talk about it. So, yeah. But you'll know soon enough, this year for sure.
How would you say you've grown as a person compared to when you were younger?
I would say that that's actually a great question. I think that I'm more patient and more willing to be okay to fail and to get where I want to go. And I think that when I was young, I was so concerned about trying to, make it and do what was popular rather than what is true to like what I am doing. And I think that, in music, it's a hard balance to have success and to go exactly your own way, And I think that my music's always kind of walked the line of, being on the radio or a commercial while also kind of being in the rave, So for me, I'm always trying to find that avenue of where I fit in, but it's been a cool challenge to kind of just grow as I grow and my music kind of changes, but hopefully it still kind of has elements and sounds like me,
Yeah.
So.
What would you say have been your biggest challenges so far in your life?
Probably just wishing that I had paid more attention when I was younger into learning proper music, because I think that I've always kind of fought when I started. Like I said, like kind of all those things I just said were kind of a detriment to me as well, because I never really, when I first started, set a perfect, like, hey, here's exactly what I sound like, here's what I'm doing, here's like my vibe, my brand, my whole thing. And so I think that I was always kind of a little bit of everywhere, and so like people never really fully got to grab onto what I was trying to do. And so I think I'm trying to now bring that back in together, you know, and kind of be like, this is me, this is my brand, this is what I'm doing. Yeah.
Love that. What does love mean to you?
Does love mean to me?
Yeah.
Love is something, I think the word unconditional gets thrown around a lot, but I think that love is something where you have so much passion that you need to find a way to do that thing, whether that's be with someone, or if you love music, or you love art or hunting or whatever it is. Like you have to, like, your life is not complete without that element, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's a piece of you that you need to have.
Last question. What do you want to be remembered for?
Oh wow. I hope that I think for me, I've always, like, as much as music is a self thing and you're giving a piece of yourself, I've always wanted to hopefully affect someone else's life for the positive. And I've been very fortunate. People come up to me and say, like, oh, you got me through a tough time, or I was thinking about suicide and your song like helped me get better or whatever. And I think for me, like hearing that kind of stuff is so incredibly powerful because it means it's bigger than like me and what I'm doing and what, you know, it's affecting someone's life for a better. And like, I think for me, if I can look back in 10 years or people can look back and say, hey, like, you know, you affected my life in a positive way, then like that makes me happy as a legacy. You know, I don't necessarily need to have a Grammy or, you know, awards on the wall. As long as it's like positively affected certain people, then I'm super happy. So,
I love that. This was awesome. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Bye.